Welcome to the WriterDojo with your host, Steve Diamond.
That's me.
And Larry Correia.
Hello. I didn't think of a quote again.
Today's episode, A Rising Tide with Jim Curtis.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the WriterDojo. Glad to have you all with us again today. We're doing our last interview here at the Writers Cantina in Utah, this new convention that we've talked about for you guys for the last several weeks. For us, for the last day and a half. This is what happens when Larry and I go to a convention together and I have recording equipment. We just record interviews with everybody.
We talk to a lot of people. It's crazy. Our record still was 9 at LTUE, 9 at LibertyCon, and we'll never do that again.
No, that was a lot.
That was stupid.
Well, plus our schedules were crazy on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we got here, we ran into an old friend, and we realized we hadn't had him on the show yet, even though we both kind of thought we had. So we're like, well, crap. Sorry, Jim. Come on, let's talk. So our guest today is a good friend of ours, Jim Curtis. So, Jim, thanks for making time for us. We appreciate it, man.
Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. Like you said, we've been talking about this for over 2 years.
I know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is like this got wrapped into the same brain as like the Mike Massa lost episode. It just vanished.
We lost an episode. We recorded an episode with Mike Massa and it vanished. So
yeah, we don't know.
He probably said something classified.
That's what it was.
They've vanished it. Let's see. So Jim, I've known you for a long time on the internet before we met in person, because me and Jim were both gun nuts.
Yep.
And so we knew on the internet before that, and also we're both friends of Law Dog. Ian McMurtry.
Yep.
So we knew because of that. I think the first time I met you was probably Uncle Hugo's book signing.
Oh my!
In Minneapolis before it burned down.
Yep.
In probably 2010-ish.
That's about right. I flew up because I had another meeting up there on some other stuff.
Yeah,
It happened to correspond to when you were going to be there.
Yeah, I think that was the first time we ever met in person.
So I just stayed the extra day or two.
Yep. That was fun. And so you...
Wow.
Jim's got an interesting background.
Yeah.
So we'll let you introduce yourself here.
So let's lead off with that, Jim. How about you tell the audience who you are, what you do, the kind of stuff you write, and how you got into this business that we all totally love and never hate.
Yeah. So in other words, lie.
Yes. Correct.
That's what we do.
I'm a retired Naval Flight Officer, over 20 years in the military, 11 years enlisted, 11 years commissioned, 11 years in the Atlantic, 11 years in the Pacific. Too dumb to get a real job, went back to work for the Navy.
Yeah.
Basically did that for another 23 years, mostly doing R&D and other things. I've been a shooter for over 60 years. Been an NRA instructor for probably 20 plus. I've traveled all over the world. My proudest accomplishment is I conducted 33 sea tests for the Navy and never lost a person, never got a person hurt. I lost $5-6 million worth of hardware, but I never got a person hurt.
Yeah. You could replace the hardware.
Yeah. The people, not so much.
Exactly.
But got into writing, and basically I've known Larry since he was in college. So
True. Yeah. So when I started getting into internet gun forums, I was
Yeah.
in college. Yeah. When I started meeting you guys, and you guys were all the experienced ones.
yeah, and I got to looking around on there one day, and we'd all been writing stuff back and forth, the little snippets, and then I realized you had sold a book, so I bought one,
Yep.
and then Marco Cluse got published.
Another guy from the same internet gun forum.
Peter got published.
Peter Grant, also from the same gun
Yeah.
forum.
And then you and Mike did Mr. Nightcrawler.
Yep, me and Mike Cooper did the online fiction serial on the same gun forum.
Yeah, which I, by the way, have a complete copy of.
Oh yeah, it's actually crazy how many people on that forum became professional published authors.
Yeah.
Well, and then we mentioned Ian McMurtry.
Yeah.
Also George Hill.
George Hill was another one.
And I think Mike Williamson was on there, but he was already a writer before he was on that forum. And I'm forgetting.
There are a couple of more.
We had several people do nonfiction become Kathy Jackson.
Yeah, Kathy.
Tamara Keel.
Yeah.
Geez, I'm forgetting some people. We had a whole bunch of people become professional writers.
And these were all people that are actual real gun nuts and knowledgeable gun nuts.
That was a weird little grouping of people. Like it was highly literate.
Yeah.
Highly literate, extremely well read.
Yeah.
But most of us were like pretty hardcore fiction nerds.
Yeah.
And we're all shooters.
Yeah. And Oleg Volk.
Oh, yeah.
Can't
And
forget
Oleg. Yeah, we can't leave out other kinds of artists, but he's also a writer.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so seriously, the writing talent that came off this one internet gun forum is
That's
kind
a
of
lot.
bonkers.
Just percentage-wise, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm looking around. I'm seeing these books come up for sale, and I'm looking and going, I know these. So I literally pulled snippets I had written on the firing line and snippets from my blog. And that was my first book called Vignettes.
Huh.
Which was snippets from those two places.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those guys just joining us who don't know Jim has had a blog since the dawn of blogs. And it's Old NFO.
OldNFO.org.
Yeah.
I've been blogging for 17 years.
And also, you were kind of a compulsive storyteller. So I think a lot of you learned to write by telling true stories
Yeah.
on the internet.
Yeah.
It's how you kind of, before you did fiction, you learned to write through doing that.
Right. And you make a great point. I'm a storyteller, not a writer. They are two entirely different perspectives. So that's, and the other thing, quite honestly, is the reason I started publishing was I got so tired of perfect characters and bad guns. Mm-hmm. You couldn't read a book without finding a perfect character who never made a mistake and guns that were done wrong. And I'm not even going to get into the movies.
Oh, no, yeah. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
So I started writing basically imperfect characters and all the weapons were right.
yep.
You know, you and I have talked about this a lot, Larry, and that's that, I mean, for a lot of us, we get into these, we kind of come into storytelling and writing and stuff, you know, both aspects of it, because we see something that bugs us a lot in things. I mean, that was the reason why I wrote Residue to begin with. That was because I hated the way that some of these characters were portrayed in shows. They were all just stupid. They made stupid decisions all the time. And
They furthered the plot by
through
screwing
stupidity.
up.
Yeah.
Any sensible person would just solve the problem.
Yeah, like they would have just shot the thing right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's interesting because I haven't had this conversation with you before. And so I find it interesting that we all kind of come at it from similar veins.
Yeah, I
You know
refer
what I
to
mean?
it as spite writing.
Spite writing,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah,
That's
out
it.
of spite, I'm going to write this better than this other thing that's out there. Yeah.
Well,
Hey, motivator.
Yeah, and I wrote, I figured I've got a niche book. I literally had one rejection letter that said, even if you publish this with Vanity Press, you'll never sell 200 copies in your lifetime.
How many books do you have now?
In that series alone, about 20,000. And I'm somewhere over 7 million page reads.
Yep. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Jim, you write under J.L. Curtis.
Yep.
And you're in a few different genres.
Yep. 16 anthologies.
16 anthologies
Yeah.
now. Wow. Yeah, because you've actually done a lot of short fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not part of Raconteur Press, but you've done a lot of stuff with the Raconteur Press guys.
Yeah, well, we're all local.
Yeah, because you guys are all out of the same town in Texas. So you've actually, and you've done, I'm trying to remember here, you've done sci-fi.
Yeah.
You've done Mill SF.
Yeah.
You've done Western.
Western.
Yep.
I was
Yep.
gonna say that.
1870s Western.
Yep.
And urban fiction.
Okay.
I mean, so you got a pretty good resume for a guy who's not a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And moderator and panelist at a lot
boy.
of cons.
Yep.
Actually,
Yeah.
and if I recall correctly, the first panel you were ever on at a con. Okay, so this is a true story. This is several years ago. This is a long time ago. I was asked to moderate a panel at LTUE called, it was like on self-publishing. Problem was my self-publishing knowledge was about 10 years out of date at this point. I started out self-published, but I hadn't done it for a long time. But I was like, I'm okay to be the moderator. I can ask good questions. And then I had a group of people who were all successful self-published authors. They all dogged the panel. And so it's just me up there. And my knowledge is 10 years out of date. I'm not going to lead the audience astray with dumb information. So I'm thinking I'm just going to like call this and we're not going to have a panel. Into the room walks Ian McMurtry, who we all know as Law Dog, who has had a success, at this point has had a successful self-publishing career. He'd never been on a panel before. And he gets kind of freaked out in front of crowds. So I point him out and I'm like, hey, come help. He's like, wait, what? And so he gets drafted. And then like 2 minutes later, you and Peter Grant walk through the door. And I'm like, oh, hey, 2 more guys who were successfully self-published and who were going the self-published route. Hey, he's like, Jim, Peter, come here. And all of a sudden, you guys got shanghaied. And we had a great panel.
Yeah.
But you guys had just got shanghaied into your first ever panels.
That was really your first ever panels?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and
No
that,
time to fret.
that kind of started the whole rising tide thing,
Yep.
because, you know, I looked at that panel and I went, this is a way to give back to the community, one.
Yeah.
And two, I have no problem admitting I make mistakes. And if I can admit I made a mistake in front of a crowd and somebody else doesn't make the same mistake, I look at that as a win.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, you know, because you want to learn from mistakes, and it's better to learn from somebody else's mistake than your own.
Yeah.
Ding. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
And I do remember the little girl in the back at the end who basically said, well, you guys are cheating because you already had a built-in fan base
Oh, and it was like,
when we were talking about
yeah.
PFR.
Well, we built that fan base through providing entertaining content. It wasn't like that people didn't buy my first self-published book out of loyalty.
No.
You know, it was plus back then, guys, you understand this is pre-Kindle. It was a $25 print-on-demand paperback. No
Yeah.
one was dropping $25 on a total stranger if they didn't think I could write.
Yeah.
But we told enough stories on the internet they knew we could.
But it was just so damn funny for her to say that, because all 4 of us looked at that. The other, did she really just say that? You know?
You get some great takes.
I want to ask you a question on this, and this is more of just a preferential question. You've done a lot of short stories and stuff. Do you prefer writing short fiction or long fiction?
I actually prefer long fiction,
Okay.
but short fiction, and you guys know I've done a couple anthologies myself.
Of course.
Short fiction allows you to get your name out in an anthology and get other authors looking at you and other people looking at you. Because if you are in an anthology, well, like spot reps.
Yeah, Peter Nealon.
Yeah, that started because of a discussion in the hall at LTUE
Yeah.
that went on for an hour, because we were trying to educate
A guy.
a guy about cartels and intel.
Oh no.
The 3 of us are standing there talking for literally an hour. And there must have been 30 people crowded around listening. I didn't
Well, it was
know.
very
That's
educational.
that's what happens at those things, right?
We call it, a lot of times with writers, we call it holding court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where some writer will start pontificating on whatever it is their
Yeah.
subject. But then you'll draw a crowd of people who are just like, whoa,
Yeah.
I didn't know about what this is cool.
Yeah.
Because writers, we're like always hungry for ideas.
Yeah.
And we had some really interesting people who done some really interesting jobs.
Yeah.
You know, that you could draw. And Pete Nealon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. Love
But
Pete.
it was so funny because I jokingly said to Pete while we're standing there, you know, you ought to do an anthology in your Mailstream world. And he goes, okay. And Larry looks over and goes, what? I'm in. And I drafted Ian. He didn't even know he was in it.
He's like, I'm in an anthology? What? Yeah.
But we did 10 stories. 9 of the 10 are combat vets. The only one that was not a combat vet was Larry.
Yeah, and I fake it. I just hang out with cool people.
But that was a super story.
Pete is such a knowledgeable dude, and it's his universe, and he ain't gonna let anything through that's not up to snuff.
Yeah.
And now the pizza guy we haven't had on the show yet, but he's a friend of ours, and I've plugged his stuff a lot. He's quality
fantastic.
writer.
Fantastic guy, good friend of ours.
Yeah.
All right, real quick. before we really dive into the subject of, like rising tides in the sense of building this community amongst each other, and we've hinted at that already through some of the comments already. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into it a little bit more. We'll be right back.
My name is Colt Ostergaard. Some people call me a space cowboy. I guess that's true. Just don't call me Maurice and we'll get on just fine. Now there's this writer fella by the name of Cutler, Rick Cutler, and he's appointed himself as my official biographer. He's read up 5 little stories about me, like how I got no home on the range, or about the Yoderson Ranch Massacre, which, by the way, was not my fault, and the shootout at Piano Gulch, and a couple other things. You can read all 5 of them in the Space Cowboy Anthologies by Raconteur Press. So if you like a Western flavor to your science fiction, you can find me there along with stories from dozens of other mighty fine writers. Space Cowboys. All 5 volumes are available now on Amazon. Go get you some. And don't forget, my name ain't Maurice.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Okay. In the top half of the episode, we kind of hinted at what we wanted to talk about, what you wanted to talk about with us. And that's and we've talked a little bit about this in another episode before, but we wanted to bring other people in and get their takes and their insights, their angles on the same subject. And that's the idea of a rising tide lifting all ships and building an actual honest to goodness like writing community rather than the bullcrap that we see on Twitter.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons that I do the panels that I do, because I have no problem making fun of myself. I've screwed up enough doing this to, probably cost myself a lot of money. But I don't mind admitting that, because if I can do that and somebody else hears that and gets a laugh out of it, maybe they remember it and don't make the same mistake.
Yep.
The other thing is, we talk amongst ourselves, and the subject matter is wide and varied.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. Having the chance to do that, even the sidebars at the cons, or as we joke, our Saturday suppers, are nothing more than a writer's conference.
That was part of the reason why we started WriterDojo to begin with.
Yeah.
Is because Larry and I, we were talking, we're like, you know what? I mean, when we get together, we talk about all sorts of stuff, right? Because we're friends and all that. But a lot of times we end up talking about writing stuff and the weirdness or the weird things that we see or the cool things that we see. And we have big, long, drawn-out conversations about it that no one else hears. And it's like, you know what? Why don't we just share that with other people?
Well, this is a business. When it comes down to it, this is a business. You have to treat it as such.
Yep.
Which means you've got to put the work in and the time. And one of the things that I harp on is time management. Do what works the best for you. Your goal is to complete the book that you're writing. You can pay people to do editing. I do. You can pay people to do cover art. I do.
Yeah.
Because that to me is a waste of time and money.
By the time you learned how to do cover art,
Right.
you could have wrote another book.
Because what people don't think about is what your cost per hour is if you're doing something.
Yep.
Now, both you guys are accountants.
Yes.
Yep.
So you automatically know I'm going to calculate my cost per hour for doing business.
Well, and because I'm ridiculous, it's the what is my cost as a W-9 employee?
Yeah.
And what is my cost as a consultant?
Yeah.
Those two costs are very radically.
Radically different, yes.
Triple.
Yeah.
Consulting is typically triple.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I calculate that out. It's not pretty.
Yeah. When I was consulting, I was $180 an hour.
Exactly. 100. Yeah, exactly.
Now, on the contract stuff, I was about $100 an hour.
Right. Yeah, that sounds right.
That's what was billed. It was $100 an hour.
Yes.
When anytime you're doing something, you're not doing something else.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it's the opportunity cost of what am I missing out on because I'm not doing this.
And it's writing every day, even if it's 50 words. You know, you hear people, oh, I write 3,000 words a day. I write 5,000 words a day.
Freaking Rick.
Rick Partlow.
Well, I'm going to say Rick, but Rick. Yeah.
He's our guy we always go to on the show now for that kind of thing.
Rick has done that for years. He worked up to it.
Oh, he's trained. He is. It's a habit.
Yeah, it is literally a habit. I have a friend that gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He writes from 3 to 4 a.m. because he starts his commute at 4:30 in the morning.
That is hardcore.
Yeah,
That is really hardcore.
but that's the time that he has because he has a full-time job and a family.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with another author today, and he was just saying, he's like, I feel bad sometimes I'm listening to WriterDojo, and you start to talk about productivity and like, because I come out with a very dairy farmer kind of ethic about like writing every day. He's like, I tend not to write, but then I tend to write in a big clump.
Yeah.
And I feel guilty when I'm not writing but I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, then you're still working.
Yeah.
Because working and writing are not necessarily, synonyms.
Yeah.
You can work without writing, and you can be working on your writing without actually typing.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, if you're researching, if you're outlining, you're plotting, a lot of people are different. Some of us, like, it's go on a walk. You know, we talked on the show one time. It was like unlocking ideas was a nature hike. Bridget finally threw me out of the house because I was stuck, and the two of us drove to a national park and spent the weekend hiking.
Yeah.
And I came back and I was fine. I had everything unlocked.
Well, and that's the other thing. We just finished a pantsing versus outline panel. And the bottom line was,
The Discovery Writers won.
it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Whatever
fine.
works for the individual
Exactly.
author,
Yep.
period.
Yeah, I mean, I joke. Larry and I.
Yeah.
That's our pretend like nemesis joke against each other, right?
Me and Steve are flipping on
Yeah.
books right now, where he's outlining and I'm discovery.
Yeah.
Yes. I try not to say pantsing because he gets all.
I hate it.
He
I
gets
hate
all.
that
He
word.
gets all offended.
Reminds me of 7th grade gym classes and stuff, right? Like,
Not going there.
but no, like that's the whole thing is, there's no one path.
No, there's not.
No.
And that's so hard to get across to people.
It is. Everyone wants that. Well, what is the solution?
Yeah.
What's the
What is
silver
the
bullet?
answer? When I went to 20 books, that was what everyone was peddling.
Yeah.
Oh, here is the solution, quote
Bullshit.
unquote. And I'm like, well, that's crap. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense because you know what? Maybe that is the solution for that dude over there, but for me,
Yeah.
it's drivel and it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and that's such a hard lesson to get people to understand because there are so many people in this business who are selling something. I'm not talking about selling books.
Yeah.
They're selling their how-to guide.
Yeah.
Of
And
how
they've
to be,
made more money off the how-to guide than made off of any book that they've actually written.
Yes.
and
Yeah,
released.
and those guys annoy the crap out of me because
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
them aren't that good of a writer, or they're not even really a writer at all.
Yeah.
Or they wrote something years ago, but they have, by golly, there's 6 different guides to how to be a millionaire bestseller.
Yeah.
I don't. And I think trying to reach regular people and just get regular people to understand this stuff
Yeah.
is huge. It just helps them. And each time we can. And then another thing we talk about on the show a lot. There's a thing, and I know you've seen this, and we've both been around the gun business, so we've seen this, where there's a thing where if someone makes $1, some kind of person will assume that dollar was taken from them.
Yeah.
You understand?
God, yes.
Yeah, so there's this attitude, and a lot of writers have it. It's a running joke in the gun business because there are some gun companies legendary for this, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the antithesis, though, of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The idea of, oh well, you made that sale. That dollar came from me instead. And that's not the case. When, I've sold books next to Larry for a better part of a decade.
Yeah.
At this point, and half the time we are not selling our own books. We are selling, like you are selling mine, I'm selling yours. We are selling the books of everyone around us.
Right.
Because it has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
It has to do with what does the reader need in that moment. And we know around us who is going to be able to fulfill that need.
Yeah.
And that's more important to me than, shilling my own book. Anyone can sell a book, but not everyone can sell their own persona and themselves as a brand and as a person.
Yeah.
You hang out with a bunch of writers,
Yeah.
Jim, right? I've seen you practice what you preach on this, because I've seen you push stuff for a bunch of other writers that I know and they're
Yeah.
good. I've seen you push stuff for Ian. I've seen you push stuff for Peter, Dorothy,
Yeah.
Cedar.
Yeah.
I've seen you go out there and help these guys, and it's awesome to see.
Why not?
Yeah.
We don't have a corner on the market. There is no such thing as a corner on the market.
No.
It's too big.
It's too big, yes.
And it keeps growing and changing.
Yeah. And the more people we can bring to that, the more stories we can bring, the better off we are.
Yep.
Well, how many people have, I know this happened to me, but how many to both of you guys, how many people have come up to you and said, hey, I found your stuff because I was reading that other stuff over there and I thought it was cool, and then I got recommended to you.
Yeah.
And so now I'm reading you, and this is great. Like that spread, that word of mouth, that community and stuff. Like
Well,
that
The community, the
important.
anthologies, yes.
Yeah.
Because if you get into an anthology, people are going to go because they like a specific author in that. And now you've got 9 or 10 other stories. And they go, well, that wasn't a bad story either. Maybe I'll look at them.
Well, one of the people here who you've helped out, because you've given good career advice to, is my daughter.
Yeah.
My daughter Hinckley's here, and so she's now doing her own stuff, and
Yeah.
she's now got a real professional job for the first time too. So she's been
Yeah.
really busy, but she's actually doing editing now for Raconteur Press. She's doing some slush reading over there too, and having some fun. But you helped her out when she was starting, and you actually gave her some story advice one time, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. But she's had over the years a couple times where you at different things were talking to Hinckley and you would give her some bit of nugget of advice. And she's 24 now, and I think you've been doing that since she was probably 14.
Yeah. I know I can't write all the stories,
Yeah.
but you have, we're all pretty fast on our feet, so to speak. And I mean, we did it last weekend at LibertyCon. It was hilarious because we did one panel on self-publishing, and I swear we threw out 35 or 40 ideas during the panel. One guy was a dog trainer, and he's, well, I'm working on story ideas. You're a damn dog trainer. Write it from the perspective of the dog. Blink. Damn. You never thought of it.
It's funny because you get these people who don't understand how this works, and they'll come and be like, I got this really great idea. I'll share it with you, and you write the book, and then we can split the profits. And I'm like, dude, ideas are the lead. Here, I'll give you 10.
Yeah, exactly.
I got 99 problems. Ideas ain't one.
I'll give you 10 ideas. I don't have to. I'll die before I have the chance to write these, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's helping people grasp how this stuff actually works is huge. Helping them unlock, making that jump.
Right.
I'm a dog trainer. Oh wait, I know a lot about dogs.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that, but it's trying to instill a little self-confidence in people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all have imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think back to when we started,
Or 5 minutes ago.
or 5 minutes ago, whichever. I'm not good enough to be out there. No. If you wrote a book, if you completed a book and published it, you're in the top 1% of people that ever attempted to write a book.
It's true.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we get it. I get this all the time, and that's you know what? I think I could write a book like you. I'm like, cool,
Yeah.
cool,
Do it.
go do it.
Yeah.
And then I actually had one guy do. He's a friend of mine. He did this, and he started writing a story. He's Native American, and so he was like, I'm gonna write a Native American, kind of a, analogous type story and stuff. I'm like, cool. And I think he wrote 10,000 words, and he goes, boy, this is really hard. I'm like, correct.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what I did over the last 5 weeks? He's like, what? I said, I wrote 90,000 words. And he goes, oh, okay.
If it was
I get
easy,
it.
everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings up an excellent point. The difference between the styles to write a short story, a novella,
Yeah.
and a full novel. And
Oh, yeah.
which genre are you writing in? Mm-hmm. Because each genre has different, shall we say, tropes, codes.
Yeah.
Basic, fundamental
Yeah.
building blocks of what is expected in there.
Yeah, and they're all different.
Yep. And every time you jump,
Yeah.
you're taking another risk. And
Yeah.
that's another thing too, is taking the time to be able to help people
Yeah.
make that jump and learn what they need to do. I enjoy that. I love when I get people who come up to we got this a lot this weekend.
Yeah.
Where people come up to us like, hey, I watched such and such or listened to such and such episode
Yeah.
on Spotify, and I learned this and this, and it unlocked my problem, and man, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
And we talk about rising tide lifting the boats. I love seeing new guys be successful. I love seeing old guys make comebacks.
Yep.
I love seeing people just be successful. It makes me happy. I mean, I genuinely get excited to see people. There's some writers I can't stand on a
Yeah.
personal level. When those guys are successful, screw that guy.
Yeah.
But that's just me
Thank
being
you,
petty,
thank you.
You know. but overall, when I see somebody come up
Yeah.
and succeed, and I see somebody get a book deal, or I see somebody have a book come out, I see somebody like hit a bestseller list, or quit their day job.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Dude,
One day.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, and to further that, I also really enjoy seeing people who I met really, really, really early on in their processes.
Yeah.
And they've attained success, oftentimes much more success than I have, which is totally fine. And what I love more is when I see them out there
Passing
passing it on.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll hear them say something that I'm like, I told you that. I was
Yeah.
the first guy that told you that. And now you're passing it forward, and that's awesome.
Or
Like,
having somebody come up to you 8, 9, 10 years later and go, what you told me back in 2016 worked.
I will say one of the ones that hurts though. I've been doing this for 15 years now. Steve knows what I'm talking about. When you have a grown adult come up to you and say, wow, you really inspired me to be a writer when I started reading you in high school
Yeah.
or elementary school. And I started reading your books, man. I was really inspired to like try to be a writer. And they're telling me this now. They have a beard.
Yeah.
They got their kids are there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope. I love the stories of people coming up, but those I refuse.
I do have to tell one on Dot, though.
Okay.
Like I said, we have supper over at my house every Saturday. Well, now we bounce to Cedar occasionally. But Dot was having problems with her first story. And it was one that she had not worked on in years. So we had finally yelled at her enough that she went, fine, I'll write it. So she brings over a snippet and she says, I'm having a problem figuring out how to do this rescue. She brought it to the wrong place. There was a 3-hour discussion between South African military, U.S. military. What if we take a third party somewhere else in the world military? How would we attack this place? And she's sitting there going,
It's like, I just wanted 2 paragraphs.
She's like, she just needed 2 paragraphs.
and we now jokingly call her genre tactical romance
Nice.
because she's in the 3rd book. And it's to the point she doesn't even send it to us anymore.
Yep. She knows what's going to happen.
But
You're going to put too much tactical in her romance.
yeah, but it's being able to pass on that experience.
Yeah.
Being able to take the stuff and, as we say, scrub the serial numbers off well enough that it can be used by other people.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's again part of that rising tide lifting all boats.
So, Jim, first of all, thank you so much for coming and meeting with us, taking the time. pretending that you're not offended that we thought that we'd already had you on the show and we hadn't. At least we didn't lose your episode like we did with NASA.
We did take him out for Peruvian food though before.
That's true. So
me and Jim always compete to see who gets the check.
Larry won.
This time.
So Jim, before we go, give us kind of your one last outro tidbit of advice or desire that you want to see in this writing community.
Don't be afraid to write, first of all. And do what's right for you, not what everybody says is right.
There we go. Awesome, Jim. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, man. Again, and it's always a pleasure. It's always awesome seeing you. Thank you so much. This is the Writer Dojo. We'll see you on the next one.
Writer Dojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nivo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
He probably said something classified.